Now that we have the right weapon for the job, we can deal full damage. I was overjoyed that I could finally leave the dungeon with a worthy upgrade. Hey guys, welcome back to Noob to Final Boss. In the last episode I took a little detour back to the Archglacier and managed to snag my first Iceborne title. But today we are getting back on track with the grind, pushing toward that final boss achievement and slowly chipping away at the remaining bosses. The last few episodes have been all about whittling down my enemies from afar with my Noxious longbow, so I figured it was time to get up close and personal. Melee is easily my least used combat style in the series. I haven't touched it since episode 6 against the Twin Furies, so I thought it was time to give it another go. Of course that meant reworking my entire setup to make sure I could actually survive with melee. So yeah, new gear, new style, same goal. Let's get into it. There we have it, 99 smithing. That's my third level 99, which is actually huge. I came back to RuneScape last year with the goal of maxing my first ever account, and while my focus has shifted toward learning PvM, maxing is still very much a long-term goal. Though to be honest, it'll probably just happen passively along the way. Anyway, the main reason we went for 99 smithing was to craft the tier 90 melee masterwork armor and also a new weapon. But first things first, let's grab that brand new skill cape. Alright, we should have everything we need. I'm excited to make this new gear. First I'm gonna make the full armor set, cause that armor looks sick as hell.
One eternity later.
There it is, full masterwork completed. It took a while to craft it from scratch, but man was it worth it. Oh yeah, this is mine? Holy shit! It's got that proper medieval vibe. Honestly one of the coolest looking sets in the game in my opinion. Alright, let's go ahead and make a weapon to match this set. So I bought a Spear of Annihilation and decided to reforge it to its masterwork variant. Since I completed the Valgothic Sleeps quest earlier, I can access the Dragon Forge. After rekindling the forge, I broke down the Torva boots we got from Nex. We're gonna use that along with some other materials I picked up from the GE to make the spear. It can only be made at an Imkendo anvil, so off we went to the Warforge. And a few final strikes later, boom, tier 92 weapon crafted. That's pretty damn cool. Let's wield it for the first time. Oh wow, that thing looks mean. I definitely wouldn't want to be on the other end of it. So this spear also comes with a passive effect that increases the duration of my bleeds by 50%. Normally these abilities hit 5 times, but with the spear they hit 7 times. That pairs really nicely with my Cinderbane gloves and poison build, since it gives more chance to proc poison damage over time. I also perked out the spear with Precise 5 and Lunging 3. Lunging is a perk that boosts the damage of Dismember, so that synergizes perfectly with the extended bleeds. Alright, time to take the new gear for a spin. I wanna try it out on an easier boss before tackling my first ever elite dungeon, and what better warm up than the Corporeal Beast. Any weapon that isn't a spear will deal half damage at this boss. Now that we have the right weapon for the job, we can deal full damage. The core beast does quite a lot damage, but other than that, it's a simple tank and spam boss. Just deal as much damage as you can and bring him down. I didn't really get to practice much PvM skills here, so I won't spend too much time on it, but on screen you can see the loot from my 100 kills. We also hit level 90 strength while fighting Corp, which is pretty huge actually. Now I have base 90 in all combat stats, so yeah, the account's coming along really nicely. Alright, it's time for the real challenge of this episode, the Dragonkill Laboratory, aka Elite Dungeon 2. I'm sticking with the same gear setup, but I swapped out my Masterwork helm for the Jaws of the Abyss. It gives a bit less style bonus, but the passive effect pairs perfectly with the Masterwork spear. The Jaws increase adrenaline gain for each active bleed, and like I mentioned earlier, the spear boosts bleed duration by 50%. I also added Dragonslayer and Biting 2 perks to my platelets. Dragonslayer gives a 7% damage boost against dragons, which we'll be facing a ton of in this dungeon. And I'm bringing armor spikes in my ammo slot for some free damage. Now, the Dragonkill Lab is made up of 3 boss fights, each separated by waves of trash mobs. Just watching a guide was overwhelming, so I decided to team up with a more experienced player before even thinking about running it solo. Luckily I find a super chill random guy who was down to guide me through the whole dungeon. In the first section, we encountered a bunch of slimes. Don't let the looks fool you, they can be surprisingly dangerous. They multiply fast and can overwhelm you if you are not careful. So we focused on the light colored ones as fast as possible to open up the barrier and move on to the next section. Next up, some red dragons try to block our way, but we wiped them out easily. Okay, he wiped them out easily. My wingman was basically one-shotting them while I was just trying to keep up. Then we ran into the first celestial dragon of many in this dungeon. These things can self-heal, which makes them a bit of a pain. At this point, I felt like a total NPC, just kind of there for show. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but seriously, my teammate's out here deleting dragons with a single ability, and I'm over here kicking and backhanding one just to stop its special attack. Eventually, we reached the first boss, Astalarn. It took me a couple of tries to fully get the hang of his mechanics, but eventually we brought the beast down. And with that, I can officially say I've defeated my first ever elite dungeon boss. Once Astalarn fell, the barrier dropped and we pushed into the second section of the dungeon, slicing through more dragons and even a few strike burms, until we made it to the next boss, Lith. At this point I was just kind of taking my time, mostly because I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. My main focus was just handling the mechanics properly, while my new necromancer friend tanked all the damage. This boss was really no big deal. Besides the massive health pool, its mechanics were way more straightforward than the previous bosses, and we got it done no problem. From there we fought our way through the last stretch of the dungeon, until we stepped into this huge open arena, where we finally faced the big bad blackstone dragon. The second phase was a little chaotic. You have to kill these 4 massive black hands, and they periodically summon lines of smaller shadow hands that absolutely wrecked me on our first attempt. But that's fine, we went back and tried again. And again. And again. After a few attempts, I finally managed to survive phase 2, and we cleared phase 3 relatively cleanly, and that's when the dragon flies up into the air. And it's a pretty boring part of the fight. All you do is dodge the fire attacks he's raining down, which is easy enough, until he finally comes back down for the last phase, where he uses all of his previous mechanics. And eventually we do succeed in bringing him down, slaying the blackstone dragon. With that, I can officially say I've completed my first ever elite dungeon. I got lots of common loot, and it was a lot of fun. So fun that we literally just teleported back and ran it a couple of more times. I've been told that melee is the hardest combat style for this dungeon, and honestly I felt that in this boss fight. I couldn't really react a lot of the melee hits the bosses threw at me, and I struggled with some of the mechanics. But hey, you guys already know I have a real talent for picking the perfect combat style for learning new bosses. Grouping up was awesome for learning the basics, but after a while I was feeling brave to try it solo and just see how much more difficult it would get. I switched to my tier 90 necromancy tank armor, which is basically perfect for learning new content. It gives a ton of bonus life points, the set bonus has a 10% chance to dodge attacks, and the vengeful ghost is just OP cause it heals you consistently. Running this elite dungeon gave me a whole new kind of PvM experience. I slowly started learning how to clear mobs efficiently using AoE abilities. The more runs I did, the more familiar I got with the route and the enemies, and the loot started piling up nicely too. I decided to leave everything sitting in the chest and show you the entire haul at the end of the video. I only got common drops so far, but that's okay, we still have a ton of opportunities to make some nice upgrades. For this dungeon we're hunting 2 things in particular. From Lith, I'm after the Greater Fury ability codex, which would be absolutely huge for us. And from the Blackstone Dragon, the prize that we're targeting is the Greater Barge ability codex. And to my surprise, one of them did happen to drop. I was overjoyed that I could finally leave the dungeon with a worthy upgrade. This is my first massive ability upgrade I've gotten as an actual drop. Alright, I think it's time to claim the loot. I did 24 runs so far, most of them solo. So 369 mil in the chest. Half of that is from the codex of course, which I'm the most excited about. Let's read the book. Greater Fury is an incredibly strong basic ability. It guarantees a critical strike on your next hit. Here we go, I'm gonna try to do a solo run with melee, as crazy as that sounds. I expect it to be a completely different beast compared to necromancy. It might be a bit much, I'm not entirely sure we are ready for this, so wish me luck. Grab the corner, like in the movie 300, you know. Don't let them flank me. Activate devotion. We really have to make more use of our defensive abilities now. Okay, so far so good. It's going a lot better than I thought. This self-healing is a pretty nasty ability for a simple mob. I brought a couple of these sticky bombs to bind the celestial dragons. So I just click this in my inventory when they start healing. But hey, enough with the nasty. This dragon is actually friendly. Okay, yeah, he's dead anyway. All those attacks felt way more punishing now that I'm using melee, not gonna lie. Pretty tough fight. Ooh, hello there. Yeah, I got a little overwhelmed. I should probably just focus on one at a time. At least the second boss is somewhat predictable. He always melees us if we are close and switches to mage if we walk out of melee distance. So we only have to swap between those two protections. There we go, a blazing fast 6-minute kill, but hey, we survived. That's all that matters. Okay, I'm a little nervous about this phase. There we go, hands off me, dude. This went so much better than I expected. It's still pretty tough to flick prayers on his attacks. Alright, I'd say that was a pretty solid first ever solo melee run. That was actually fun, and we took down each of these bosses 25 times. It does take quite a while to clear this dungeon, especially solo. So I'm gonna slowly grind out the remaining kills in the background. If you guys wanna run some ED2, just hit me up in game. Oh, and by the way, I also joined this Crosus learning event on Wednesday. Pretty chill, pretty fun doing it with a bunch of other people. So I made some progress on that skilling boss too. And from that Crosus mess, here's the loot we got. Actually pretty decent loot from just 1 hour. Anyway, that's gonna be it for today's video. Thanks for coming by and I'll see you guys in the next one. And good luck to everyone taking on a mascot on Monday. Fingers crossed for you guys pulling those new best in slot weapons.